So I am going to do a very brief intro. Again, my name is Milady Garcia. It is my pleasure to serve as the Special Populations Program Supervisor for FEPP. In my role, I support financial education for our most underserved students and communities in Washington State. I was born and raised in the Dominican Republic. My background is in special ed, in general ed, and Spanish literature. I have experience in the classroom and as an interpreter and translator. My passion is absolutely supporting financial education in our most marginalized communities, and I have had the privilege of participating in professional development with the Federal Reserve Bank of Philadelphia in 2024 and 2025. It was an amazing learning experience. I learned so much, and I highly recommend if you have the opportunity to join us and the Federal Reserve Bank, any of them in professional development, please do, because it is absolutely a treat. And now I would like to formally introduce my guest speaker, Andrea Cáceres Santamaria, Senior Economic Education Specialist for the Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis. It is such an honor to have you join our webinar today. She has so much knowledge and resources that she will be sharing, and it is always a treat to work with you. I've seen you work in person, present live, and it was probably the most engaging presentation I've been a part of. So it's really a treat to have you be here. Okay, so I'm going to just quickly go over our webinar objectives. I'm going to be sharing some resources to support Washington State's diverse student population. We're going to be learning about the Federal Reserve's website and their teaching resources and professional development opportunities offered at no cost, and discover engaging lessons to build lifelong financial security for all students, but particularly for our underserved students. And this is all a part of FEPP. So we are, again, the Financial Education Public-Private Partnership. We were created by legislators who recognize that having the skill to manage the resource of money is something all students should have upon completing their K-12, path. And so our approach to improving and expanding financial education is to provide a curated list of resources for all K-12 students. You can access those resources through our website, fepp.org, but we also provide professional development and training at no cost to district or educators. Additionally, I have one really important thing I want to share. We have a financial education grant that is going away December 31st. So if you have, of this year, by the way, December 21st, 2025, that's important, okay? We don't have a year, we have only like 2 months. So if you can contact your EGMS grant manager and have them apply before December 21st of 2025 to take advantage of this opportunity, this will be the last year of the grant, so I want to make sure everyone knows about it. Okay, so I want to first share some of the amazing work that FEPP has done in collaboration with the Federal Reserve Education. Our first professional development opportunity where we collaborated with the Federal Reserve was in 2005. Since then, we have trained over 1,000 teachers. Over 100,000 students in Washington have benefited from this training. And again, this training is also, these trainings rather, have been at no cost to educators and or districts. We've collaborated with the St. Louis Federal Reserve, with the Philadelphia Federal Reserve, and the San Francisco Federal Reserve. I want to take a moment to just shout out Pamela Wally. She is the Associate Director of Financial Education, and all of these relationships she has cultivated for over 20 years. She was financial education in Washington, and we would not have gotten as far as we have had in terms of training, over 1,000 educators and so many students benefiting from this content if it had not been for her guidance and institutional knowledge. So again, just wanted to take a moment to shout out our partnerships with the Federal Reserves, but also Pamela Wally, who has been instrumental in driving this work forward. So most recently, in the past 4 years, we've worked with the St. Louis Federal Reserve Bank, and the title of that training was Steps to Reducing the Wealth Inequality. Most recently, in 2024 and 2025, we have had the opportunity to work again with the Philadelphia Federal Reserve Bank. The most recent training was titled Active Learning for the Economics and Personal Finance Classroom. That was led by Dr. Andrew Hill. We had that training in Olympia, Washington, and it was attended by about 30 teachers. And I just want to share some of their feedback from this training. Everyone loves Dr. Andrew Hill. He is so engaging. He is such a dynamic presenter. It's really a privilege to have him work with us and partner with us and give so graciously of his time. He's so very knowledgeable. And all of the resources that he shares during his presentations, our educators always express they are ready to use, they're excited to bring them to the classroom. So again, want to share some of that feedback and extend gratitude to Dr. Andrew Hill for partnering with us in this work. And that's not the only professional development and training that we provide. We provide, webinars such as the one that you have participated in today. Throughout the year, the 2024-2025 year, we have hosted 23 virtual or in-person webinars, and they have been attended by about 166 educators from 103 different school districts in Washington. They have benefited over 22,000 students. So we're making a difference. We're doing such good work. We're partnering. We're a small but mighty team. And when we partner with these amazing collaborators, we can do great things. And I just want to take a moment to celebrate my coworkers like Linda and Amy and Pam. I really, really appreciate all the work that you guys do. And it's an honor to work with such an amazing team. So now I'm going to share a little bit, some fun facts about the Federal Reserve, or as they call it, the Fed. A quick overview. They are the central bank of the United States. And some of their primary functions, right? They conduct the nation's monetary policy. What does that mean? Basically, they manage the money supply and credit in the US to promote stable prices, maximum employment, and moderate long-term interest rates. In addition, they provide efficient payment system, and we're going to go a little deeper into that as the webinar goes on a little later on. They also supervise and regulate banking and financial institutions so that everyone is operating the way they should. But for the purpose of this webinar, the most important thing is they are committed to providing personal finance and economic education. And again, they do this at no cost to educators, and anyone can benefit from their services in terms of education and instructional material. So we have 12 Federal Reserve banks throughout the United States. The highest concentration is in the East Coast, the reason being that we have a denser population and a lot more banks, so they need a lot more oversight there. A little known, so I've learned a lot throughout these webinars, putting them together. In this one specifically, I learned a lot about the Federal Reserve. So every Federal Reserve bank has a district number and a letter code assigned to them individually. So we're partnering with the St. Louis Federal Reserve Bank for this webinar, and their district number is 8, and their letter code is H. What does that mean? It means that when they have notes that they request to have printed, because little known fact, the Federal Reserve banks do not print money. I used to believe before this webinar that they did. They actually destroy money, and we're going to get into that again a little later. But this could be a really fun activity, right, for the classroom. It could be something as quick as a bell ringer, or you can extend it into something larger, like having fake bills and having students, based on the map that we had in the previous slide, identify based on the district number and the letter code, which bank requested for that bill to be printed, right? And from there, you can extend it into, okay, so it was San Francisco, or it was St. Louis, or one of the other 10. What can you tell me about that area? Maybe we ask students what the minimum wage is in that area, what the population is like in that area. So it's really, I think, a really engaging lesson potential, or just an activity. So to get things started, I want to do a quick cash facts true or false edition for the Federal Reserve. For this activity, I would ask that you put T if you think that the statements I read are true, or F if you think they're false. So that will keep it simple. Please use the chat feature. So here we go. Everyone ready? Okay. So true or false, there are more $1 notes in circulation than any other denomination. Okay, I see. Most of you think it's true so far. Okay. Thank you so much for your participation. I really appreciate it. Let's see. 3, 2, 1. Any last people entering their answers? So the answer is it's actually false. It turns out that as of December 24, the number of $100 notes in circulation exceeded the number of dollar notes. Um, it's interesting because it's not by a little bit, it's by like 5 billion. So the Benjamins are getting a lot of love, and I suspect that this is due to the fact that inflation is what it is right now, because that is a significant amount of $100 bills over dollar bills in circulation. I found that rather surprising. Okay, let's keep it going. The dollar note has the shortest lifespan. True or false? Again, please enter T if you think it's true, or F if you think it's false. This was also, another thing that was new for me. I never considered that, banknotes have a lifespan. So I definitely learned something. Few more seconds. This isn't even Stevens. Yeah, most of you think it's true, but a few more think it's okay. Let's see. 3, 2, 1, last call. So this is false. The $5 bill or note has the shortest lifespan, and the dollar note has a lifespan of 6.6 years. So this is where, as I mentioned earlier, the Federal Reserve Banks order bills to be destroyed. I've seen this happen live. I had the privilege and honor of being at the Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta, and they had this enormous shredder where they were shredding these, I guess, bills that had expired, let's say. And what does it mean for a bill to expire? Does it disintegrate? No, it's just compromised. It gets more bacteria. So when a Federal Reserve Bank gets those bills, they have them destroyed, and then they have a printing organization that they order bills to be printed from. And of course, to identify which Federal Reserve Bank ordered the bills to be printed, we have, as we learned, a district number and a letter code. So there you go. Okay, so we have a few more of these. True or false? There is more US currency in value abroad than in the United States. True or false? Okay. Again, thank you so much for participating. This is kind of even, a little bit leaning more towards true for most of you. Okay, 3, 2, 1. Any last answers? This one is actually true. Being an immigrant and watching my parents send money to the Dominican Republic most of my life, I knew this one to be true. More than half of the 1.76 trillion dollars of US banknotes in circulation are held overseas. And again, that's just to show how very diverse the population in the United States is, and how many people are sending money to support families in other countries. So it's important for us to consider that, especially in Washington, where our student population is so diverse. One last one, okay, guys? True or false? These banknotes were all in circulation before the Fed established the dollar. These are just some, images here. Most of you think it's true. Okay. Actually, so far, all of you think it's true. We have one false. Okay. Gonna give one more second. 3, 2, 1, and dun dun dun. It's true. I love learning this. So in the 1860s, we had as many as 8,000 distinct banknotes designs circulating in the US, making commerce across state lines extremely difficult. Counterfeit and fraud was rampant, and with so many designs no standardization, counterfeits thrived. Merchants often refused unfamiliar notes or accepted them at a discount. So thank you, Fed, for doing us the favor of having, the dollar and the different denominations as the standard one, because I cannot even imagine how difficult things would have been today for us if that was still the case and we had $8,000, 8,000 different banknotes. So I don't know. I learned a lot. I hope you guys did too. So now I want to share a little bit more about the importance of providing support for vulnerable students and communities. So many of our students in Washington are students of color. Over 50% of our students in Washington are students who identify as being of a race other than white. Why is that important? Um, According to data, we have about 100,000 individuals in Washington that are unbanked. Being unbanked means that you don't have a checkings or savings account with any financial institution, be it a bank or a credit union. And the unbanked rates are significantly higher in among communities of color. So if you want some concrete numbers, I can tell you that according to the Federal Deposit of Insurance Corporation, um, we have about 14% of African American communities being unbanked, and then 11% of Hispanic people being unbanked compared to just 4% of white individuals. When asked for the reason why they were unbanked, the two main reasons given were insufficient funds to meet minimum balance requirements. That was the first reason, but the second reason was mistrust, right? Lack of trust in financial institutions. That is crucial, and it is so important for us to have the information to kind of provide instruction in personal finance that is culturally relevant, because at least that component of the mistrust when we empower our students with information about our Federal Reserve System, the lifespan of a dollar, being able to identify which bank, which Federal Reserve Bank order some, the dollars and the banknotes to be printed, that can make them feel like, okay, I know something about where the money and the, financial system of the United States is working and operating. So at least part of that mistrust can be removed. Knowledge is power, and having resources that can benefit all students, especially students that have traditionally maybe not known as much as others about our financial system, or recently arrived students, that can make an enormous difference in terms of making students and communities feel empowered to take that step of joining our financial system. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to my amazing guest speaker, Andrea. Please take it away.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much, Miladis. I really appreciate it. It is an honor for me to be able to present to you. I recently spent time, as Miladis pointed out, I was in Washington State, specifically in Seattle, Washington State University, and a part of a conference. And I'm not just saying this, it was my favorite conference this summer. And I do a lot of programs. Summer is my busy time. I went from to having the summers off as a teacher to now being really busy. It's my busiest time. We do the most professional development, in-person professional development in the summer. And it was a highlight. And I even told the organizers, please have me back, because the energy in the room was really wonderful. And it was a conference where it was educators, policymakers, and it just felt like everybody was in on the same mission. So whether it was through education or policy making, or they understood that it takes education to influence and know these policies, it was really wonderful to have the two there. So I'm very excited to present these resources to you that we have. And I do have a quick disclaimer. The views expressed in this presentation are my own and not the views of the Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis or the Federal Reserve System. All right, so if it's okay with you, I'll go ahead and share, Miladis, yes? Okay, so I'll go ahead and transfer so that I can share my screen. And on top of doing math in public, this is the other thing I get nervous about doing in public, is making sure that I share the right screen. Okay, all right. Or spelling entrepreneurship in public, that's the other one. Okay, let's see. Here we go. Okay. And oh, I think I'm stopped. Hold on, I'm sharing the wrong screen. See? See, there it is. Screen two. That's what we want to share. Share, and here we go. Oh, that worked this time. Woohoo! Okay, sometimes that doesn't. I always get like the presenter screen on there, not the presentation. All right, so just real quickly, yes, so I work for the Federal Reserve Bank. I'm specifically Federal Reserve Education, and we're out of the Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis. So, as Melades pointed out earlier, I call him my system colleague, Dr. Andrew Hill. He also works in economic education, and he just happens to be at the Philadelphia Fed, and he also has a wonderful team there. But just a little background with my education, in terms of my education experience, rather, in education. I taught for 10 and a half years in Palm Beach County, Florida. I went into college with the dream of becoming a high school teacher. Um, Economics was really something nobody wanted to teach, so I came on that in the sense of like, and it also served as really good job security because I was hired in 2008 when all the things were happening. So it served as really great job security because again, nobody wanted to teach the thing, so it kept me employed. And it turned out to be the best thing that could have ever happened to me, first and foremost because I saw the value of the knowledge that economics brings to students at various levels and so many aspects of their life, both academic, professional, and personal lives. And it just opened the door to a community of people, such as Melades and her team, who are really working hard to have people realize this stuff is cool. And there are some cool people out there who produce stuff to really make this content engaging. And that's what I want to present to you today is the work that we do at the Fed as a system, as Melades did really nicely earlier in pointing out to you, like the different banks throughout the district, we define ourselves together as a central bank and as a system. So for those, as a system, we really care about this and we're all former educators. So let me give you a little background into what our team does specifically, because a lot of people think that with the Federal Reserve, they're like, oh, you guys have educational resources? Well, it's part of our mission. And while there's the dual mandate, as Melades highlighted earlier, of stable prices and maximum employment, and we have a target inflation rate and monetary policy plays a role into that. A lot of it plays a role in with the consumer and knowledge and education. And that's why a team like ours was created and carried out through the Central Bank of the United States. So we are economic educators with classroom experience, and we conduct professional development for teachers online like we are doing today and also in person. So hopefully I get to see you next summer and we'll do some really active stuff. I don't let you stay in your seat for long. We also create academically rigorous content that is easy to understand, and we align it to state and national standards. And we also are award winning. There is the National Association of Economic Educators, and they have awards for curriculum. And I can say we have a wall. Like we really have a wall in our hallway of the economic education team to remind us of all the great work that we've done over the years. So yes, award winning. Specifically, the economic education team out of St. Louis. Just wanted to show you here who we are. You're welcome to contact any of us at any time. First, I'd like to give credit to our economic education officer, aka my boss, El Capitan, Dr. Scott Walla. He's great, former teacher as well. Cameron Tucker, she is our economic education analyst. So she does a lot of analyst work for us in the sense of like retrospectives for surveys that we do and a lot of other kind of like the technical behind the scenes. And then she has a degree in economics, actually a master's degree in finance economics. And then Amanda Geiger, Jeanette Bennett, and Mike Kyman, they are all senior economic education specialists, such as myself. Maybe you've seen them, heard about them as well. And then Kelly Oliva and Andrea Matzenbacher are the magic behind a lot of our content on Federal Reserve education. So we produce the lesson plans, Amanda Geiger, Jeanette Bennett, Mike Kyman, and Dr. Scott Walla, and of course our partners throughout the Federal Reserve System. But to make it like, I still use the word bedazzle. I remember when the bedazzler came out and I said, I need one of those in my life. And I still do. I have yet to get one. But I say the word bedazzle to add bedazzle to anything that needs a little sprucing up to get people's attention, right? Just like a big bedazzled jacket would have people looking like, what did I just see? All right, so they are the ones that kind of put all the glitter. That's my favorite color is glitter. So they put the glitter on everything to make it look really nice. Okay, so that's the team. And now just a little bit more about our initiative. We are out to offer a comprehensive suite of free classroom ready materials for K through 12 and college teachers focused on economics, personal finance, and the role of the Fed. And here's what we produce. We produce lesson plans, activities, and modules that are graded. And we're segmented resources. So K to 5, middle, high school, college, including hands-on lessons on money, inflation, banking, budgeting, and decision making. Here's one thing that we do that we're very specific about. And we we use this term a lot, which is active learning. We like to engage students in the content that they're learning. So it's not just a stand and deliver, it's a balance of like teaching them certain things, but then you have them actively engage in the content with some type of simulation. And you'll notice a lot of times when you ask students what they think when you say economics or personal finances, if you were to ask them, it's the study of, and most of them will say money. Well, that is correct. Really, the basis for both courses is decision making, and it provides a lot of tools for them to be able to make more careful and conscious decisions when it comes to whatever that is that they're facing in their life. So, in our lesson plans, for example, I've had some people say, "Well, you shouldn't bother teaching personal finance to a ninth grader." I had a personal finance course that was that was nine that was ninth through 12th grade, and they had told me, don't bother. The ninth graders don't have any life experience with this. How are they going to know where to apply it? And I was like, well, what if you create the experience where they're going through the decision making process, not only physically, visually, but also emotionally, on what that process looks like, and has them interact with the vocabulary? So here's the other thing. When it comes to the vocabulary, they we have found, we did some research with a set of teachers. It was part of Federal Reserve Economic Education Fellows, and they said that the hardest thing and the one thing that they spent the most time on is getting them to see how the vocabulary worked in the context of economics or personal finance. Like that was the hardest thing for them to do. So they spent a lot of time building up that knowledge of the vocabulary and then getting them active in the lesson plan. So what I kind of do when I deliver my professional development is really emphasizing where to get the students to apply that vocabulary term in the activities and what they're doing. So yeah. And then with data and digital tools, we also have FredGraphs or Federal Reserve Economic Data. We have some lesson plans that help students understand what these economic graphs are, and kind of if you're engaging in data literacy, this is one thing you'll want to look out for. And then we also have video Q&As and infographics and multimedia. And so I'll highlight a lot of these things throughout my presentation. Also, pause. I think I said I was going to say a little bit about my educational experience, and I might have skipped over that. So I taught for 10 and a half years. Did I say this, Melades, in Palm Beach County, Florida? I did say, okay, thank you. I have 3 kids, my husband, a 2-year-old and a 5-year-old. And so there are things that I forget that I say. My husband's like, you're repeating it myself. And I was like, well, if you love me, you'll listen. Okay. All right. So with the next one, so, again, kind of just reiterating a couple of things, aligning with national standards. You may have heard that the national standards for economics, the Council for Economic Education, which teams up and leads in producing these, which are supposed to kind of be the national standard in a lot of states. We hope. We think most of them use them in a way to kind of guide them in developing their economics standards. And they've also put together the national personal finance standards. So we are aligned with those standards. And as I mentioned earlier, I can't say it enough, a lot of the content and presentations that you see from us, we're all former economics and personal finance teachers as well. Okay. Let's go to the next one. So FRE.org. This is the website I want you to remember today, because everything that I'm showing you lives on this site. Okay, right there. It lives on this site. So it's federalreserveeducation.org, but we bought the URL for FRE.org, so that will work as well. So again, as I'm talking today, if you want to go ahead and explore on there if you like, or later on, it's really short, easy for you to remember. It was short of us being able to use free. Because guess what? All of these resources are at no cost. It's free 99. If it's free, it's for me, right? So it's the best price. So we love that. So, the Federal Reserve puts a lot of resources behind making these high quality resources so that they come to no monetary cost to you, the district, or anybody who likes to use them. So FRE.org is a one-stop shop. We add resource. You can also add resources to an LMS that you already use. So an LMS such as Google Classroom, Canvas, Schoology. We have content that you can upload to those. So if you're like, oh, I wish I had like a module or something I could give them on credit, we have a module for that. If you're teaching, even if it's like supply and demand, we have a module on that that you can upload to any of those. And soon we are going to add more to the list. I'm not allowed to tell you yet which ones they are, but we have more LMSs that are currently in the works of sooner than later are going to be added for that. And that actually has been super successful for us, is having this new feature where you can upload this content onto an LMS. And I'll show you which content specifically, because it is not everything on FRE.org. Okay, guys? So just remember that, because that's something that we think people have left our workshops a little confused with. So I want to do a better job of reiterating and saying that not everything on FRE.org can be uploaded to one of those three. It's certain content. And again, we'll go over what that is. All right, so a couple of key website features. We have a login account. We would love for you to create an account. For now, the only way you can create an account is using a Google single sign-on. So that does require you to have a Gmail account, which if you don't have one, I promise you that this website makes it worth it for you to go ahead and create one. Even if you never check it, just use it to sign up for the website. So at FRE.org on the top right-hand corner, if you haven't visited or created an account before, it'll prompt you right there to create an account. You don't have to have it, okay, to explore the resources or print. But if you want access to answer keys, and you want to be able to upload content, then you do need to make sure that you have an account. But what are some of the other advantages of creating an account? Well, you can bookmark your favorite resources. You can also create folders and organize all of your saved resources as well. So I have found people, for example, they really love our infographics. So they don't want to go searching again for those infographics. So what they'll do is they'll find them, bookmark it, and save it in a folder. That way, when they log in, they go right to their list of resources and it's all right there. All right. Okay. So some of the resources that we have, as I mentioned, most are LMS compatible. Which ones specifically? So modules, video Q&As, reading Q&As, audio Q&As. The ones with the asterisks, those are the ones that are LMS compatible. You can upload that content. All right. There's something magical that they call a common cartridge. I don't know what that means, but I'm supposed to say it because that's what the technology is that is used to upload that. All right. I just make, some of the resources. I'm a subject matter expert. I'm not the technical developer expert, but they told me to say the word cartridge. All right. So you upload a cartridge. I think of a printer cartridge. That's as much experience as I have, or the Atari cartridges as well. I remember those. All right. So moving on with that. So that's, again, those are the ones that you can upload. And then for the one that is printable content, or you can order active lessons, those are PDFs, step-by-step procedures on how to carry out our lesson plans. And I'm going to show you some of those today. And then we also have the infographics, and then we have curriculum units, and then we also have stuff to help you teach students data literacy through the Federal Reserve economic data, which is our graphs. Okay, professional development. I looked at the website. You guys have PD Enroller, and that is amazing that your state has something like that to offer. That I taught in Florida, but I haven't been in the classroom for 6 years now, but I don't remember anything like that being out there. So that's awesome that you guys have that. So if you would like any of our professional development as well, we do award professional development certificates. And then I think, each of the districts has a different way in which you can submit that if you need to. But we do give professional development certificates if you attend one of our webinars. And in most cases, they're 1-hour webinars. Sometimes in the exception, we might have something like that's like an hour and a half. And then sometimes we have half-hour ones as well. So we have webinars, we have in-person workshops, we have conferences. We also offer professional development where you can take a course on a number of economics topics such as inflation, unemployment. We have so many GDP, trade. Like we have a lot of professional development. So if there's any particular topic you want to brush on, you can take that course. If you need to purchase the graduate credit, you can. But we also have those courses available in a professional development format where you do complete a couple of assignments. We deliver this through our instance of Canvas. You don't have to have Canvas, it's our instance of Canvas. And you can earn a Federal Reserve Professional Development Certificate for the hours that it took to complete that particular course. So we welcome it. Again, if it's free, it's for me, it's for you. All right. And then we also have a digital badge program where you can complete certain content and like the PD courses, and then a digital badge is awarded. And again, free 99. Okay, let's go to the next thing. So one of the things that we did new on our website is we have always had a glossary, but we've enhanced this glossary, updated definitions. For those of you that are teaching our littles out there, the K to 5, we even have pre-K, not pre-K definitions, but we have elementary level definitions of some of our terms. They're on here as well. One of the things that's new this year, or new on this website, is that we've actually linked resources that teach the particular term. So it's not necessarily that it just like touches on it or mentions it to support something else. No, it's the fact that these actually teach the content. So that's something that's new in our glossary. I want them to do a flashcard feature, but I've been told to slow down because there's a lot of things they're working on right now. But I think it would be great if at some point we had something where a student or a teacher could develop a set of flashcards based on the unit they're teaching. Just throwing it out there, manifest it. All right, it'll happen one day. All right, so now let's go ahead and start with some of our resources. And my favorite, I'm going to say this about everything. When I taught the AP Econ, I would start every unit, which this is my favorite to teach. And they're like, you seem to love everything. And I said, yes, I do. But I love all of our content. I do a lot of workshops in the early childhood and the elementary space. I taught high school, got my, as I mentioned earlier, undergraduate degree in secondary education and social science. And then I have two masters, and one of my master's degrees is in educational psychology. And I decided that I wanted to focus on the early childhood age of kind of the science of learning of our littles. And it fascinated me. If I was to go back, I did the high school thing, but if I had another chance, I would actually go to elementary because it really fascinated me in terms of the learning process. And my former boss, Dr. Mary Suter, I don't know if any of you have heard of her, but I was just in awe of what her approach is in teaching economics and personal finance to students, and that is through the power of storytelling. As you know, in elementary school, kids love a good story. I have, like I said, my 2-year-old, my 5-year-old. My 5-year-old, even when I'm not reading him a story to go to sleep, he goes, just tell me a story. Just tell me something. They just love like what it does for them in their minds, their imagination. So we thought, what about taking the power of storytelling? And Mary said, why don't we use it to teach the economics and personal finance? So her, along with other authors, co-authors outside of the Federal Reserve System, worked really hard to develop. It was actually on our old website. It was about 150 lessons that we've had. We've had to cut back because some of the books went out of print, unfortunately. But this is just a sample of some of the books that we have. There are some that are out of print, but if our research or our analyst finds that there's still a good amount of copies available used, we actually keep the lesson plan active on our website. It pretty much takes like not seeing any more out there in the universe in order for us to pull a lesson. But some of these may look familiar to you. You may have them in your library already. So I'm just going to highlight a few, and I'm going to go by lower elementary and upper elementary for you to see. All right, so let's start with grades K through 2. So the first one is the cutest title ever, Kittynomics. So we have a 2023 revised version of this, and Kittynomics is meant for really our pre-K to kindergarten level. And then we have our personal finance, language arts, and mathematics, specifically for kindergarten. One of the things, and we trademarked this a couple years ago because I have a podcast where I interview elementary school teachers on how they're teaching economics and personal finance in their classroom, because a lot of teachers are like, either it's like my twin sister, who's adorable, even shorter than me. I'm 5 feet without the heels. She's even shorter. Adorable second grade teacher, superstar. And she says that in Florida, it's embedded with social studies, and they have 15 minutes total for social studies each day. So if there's any topic or any subject that has to be like put aside to put some of the other things in in place, or if she needs to wrap something up, she's got to give up the social studies. So, I mean, she has to give up the economics or personal finance at some point, although it's a standard she has to cover. So she finds herself covering it at the end of the year when testing is over. But we thought, well, what if you sneak a little economics into the lessons that you are into the subjects that you're already teaching? So that's where this personal finance, language arts, and mathematics comes in. And you'll notice that we do that quite a bit. There's some that have like some math that students need to do. So we encourage teachers to again find a way to sneak a little economics into the topics that they're already teaching. And that is Sneakonomics is a webinar and a program that I host. And if you ever see Sneakonomics at a conference agenda, that's me. Okay. All right, so here we have, I'm going to highlight a couple of things about each of these. The first one, as I mentioned earlier, is personal finance, language arts, and mathematics. This employs active learning strategies that engage young children. Each lesson is based on a story about two little cousins, one who lives on a farm and one who lives in a city. And students listen to the stories and recall information from the stories to develop an understanding of concepts while applying language arts and mathematics skills. So, and they all come with essential questions, formative and summative assessments with answers and instructional support. Now, you might be thinking, I don't teach the littles. I don't know how this necessarily. Well, let me tell you something. When I taught the high school, there was a certain level in a certain class where you know what? Some of these things, and I'm not saying like the story or like the little kid part of it, but there were elements in which the content was presented that I was like, I think here we could start here. And I could frame it in a way, but it helped me kind of say, okay, how do I take a definition that at the high school level, I don't think they're just there yet. Then I would pull from these materials to see, okay, here's an approach for this particular class like that had a certain reading level, because that's something that I would always look at before teaching my class was, and I had some students like usually my end of the day kids, my last period kids, they couldn't be in my earlier class because they were taking a remedial like reading course as well. So all of that to say that, there might be something that you find in these elementary ones that could apply in an approach in the definition or how it's explained that you could use with some of your classes and modify them as well. All right. And the concepts in this one are earning income, gift money, skill development choices, money, and trade. And everything is included in the lesson plan in the sense of the directions, the standard, how long it takes, the preparation suggestions, and the procedure definition. So what it is that you take this, like we envision when we develop a lesson, we envision a first year teacher coming into this fresh. What do they need to know to feel confident to execute it? So if you read it, you're going to know how to do it. And so that's pretty much what we do. And again, we can support you at any time. Feel free to contact us. I have had some teachers, where they're like, I'm kind of trying to vision this activity. And so we can go through it together so that you can make sure that you're set and ready to go. And then here's Kiddonomics. This one is a set of lessons designed to introduce young children on the economic way of thinking. All right, so it's informed decision making is a critical skill that students can use throughout their school, personal work, and lives. And as citizens in a democratic society, they should understand basic principles of how the economy operates. So this is one of the things that Mary Suter would always say, you're never too young. You are never too young. And the thing is too that is again the vocabulary. So for example, scarcity. There's not enough of something. That's a simple, right? But it may sound simple, but let's put it into practice. Let's bring that part of the term to life. So in these particular lesson plans, the story, so like Betty Bunny, she really wants everything. And to be honest, she's a bit bratty about it, right? There's a lot of emotion behind her really wanting everything. And a lot of kids and parents could relate to what this looks like. So what I really like about that story is that it goes through her realizing kind of the emotions of wanting everything but not being able to have everything, and then her parents trying to explain, so the different layers of that, and then her parents actually putting things in her hands and saying, okay, well, I'm going to give you a limited amount of money, let's see what you're going to do with it. Can you have everything that you want? So what we do is we take the part of the story out and create an activity where we bring that part of the story to life that has them apply, see, hear, learn, and feel the economic or personal finance concept as well. And that also applies to the high school, middle school, high school, not necessarily in the storytelling sense, but again, it's that see, feel, the whole thing. And just that's what a simulation is to kind of give them all the senses except for smell, except in Orange in January, because you do make popsicles with your kids. In that one really does bring in all the senses. But this is another one to explore as well. And here we apply literacy, school readiness skills, songs, and extension activities. And it does have songs that go to popular, uh, you know, like other little kids songs and stuff. I sing them, but you know. All right, monster musical chairs. This is a favorite. Hey, it's October. It's the week. If you want to try this one out, if you teach elementary, this one is to teach students economic wants and for them to learn the term scarcity, opportunity cost. And it's perfect because guess what? There's a problem in musical chairs. There's not enough chairs. So you've placed the issue, you have the issue of scarcity. Does everybody get what they want in society? No. So how do you bring that concept to life? Musical chairs. So who knew, right? Mary Suter did. So in this case here, that was a great way to kind of bring a concept that you're like, well, they really get this. I'm like, well, they're already experiencing this, right? Musical chairs. And so you actually play musical chairs in your class. You have the students draw something that they want, and then you take these cards that are a good, and the chairs represent the good that they want. And if they don't get a chair at the end of the song, then you go, oh, why didn't Timmy get what he wanted? Oh, because of scarcity, because there's not enough goods. So it's having the students constantly using the term. So what does it mean when there's not enough of something? And you get them to say scarcity. And I did this with my high schoolers too. You know, they're like, there's not enough. And I'd be like, no, no, no. What's the term we want to apply? Oh, it's scarce. You know, so those type of things for them to see that this vocabulary is in what they're doing every single day. So it doesn't feel intimidating as well. It's every single day, everything we do in economic. You being right here with us today, economic decision making, right there, opportunity cost. Okay, all right. Beatrice's goat. This is we're going into our 3 to 5, so into our upper elementary. Beatrice's goat, great for entrepreneurship, sneaking a little math. This one is really great because, you know, you see this in like, what does a goat have to do with like economics? Is this her pet? No, this actually becomes more than that for this family. And this is based on a true story. It's really beautiful. So in this case, a young girl from Uganda, they receive a goat and the impact that that goat has on their family as a resource that provides things that they can sell, right? So whether it's the goat cheese or, you know, different things, that it provides a source of income for her because they have a goal, they have a savings goal, and they want to meet that goal. So how do they do that? Then our little friend the goat here really helps them to do that. So this also has them practice estimation and a couple of math skills, but this is a beautifully told story that brings in a lot of Melades was touching on earlier in terms of like the diversity, in terms of the culture, in terms of like, you know, seeing themselves in a certain story or what's going on. So here you have, in a sense, financial struggle and then finding the opportunity, and as a family, how they work out of that financial struggle, and as a family, how they meet a particular goal. So there might be some, there's in all of our stories, there's some elements where they may see certain parts of their lived experiences as well. All right, and then going more to an economics concept in elementary, peanut butter and cupcake teaches students about complements and substitutes. This one's a really cute one because this is a topic that, guess what, they know about this. They just don't know that they know the economic way in which it works, or more formally in economics. So complement, substitutes, and through this story, peanut butter and cupcake, right? Who would think if they're a complement or a substitute? And this is the cutest little series. And then so they go through this activity after the story, and then here they actually, you set them up where they do these little puzzle pieces, and you separate the class, you split them up and give one half of the class one of the puzzle pieces in the other half. So for example, one student will have ice cream, one will have birthday cake, and it is their mission to find their complement. Who goes with who? And you'll notice that also kind of thinking about different ways that students learn. We didn't want to just have the terms and the pictures. We wanted to actually provide something where it would be more visual, where they could see where they match. So the little puzzle pieces, the way that they're cut out, it's very it's intentional on why they look the way they look, so that they can see that those two pieces match as well. Okay, and then lesson 0 is a lesson in which students learn about borrowing, and they learn about the emotional cost of borrowing as well. So if you're doing negative numbers, then this is a great one because they actually get to graph. This is a graph that our friend Perry the Penguin creates in his own um, in the little book so that he can track his savings. And at times he gets tempted. And I think all of us face that, especially when you're meeting a savings goal. And he gets tempted by a couple of things, peer pressure. And he wants to buy this little ice scooter, and he moves farther and farther away from his goal because he ends up borrowing money and owing money. And you can track that here along with Perry the Penguin in the story as well. All right. And the last lesson I have for elementary, which actually we have had middle school teachers do this lesson too, and some high school teachers. It's called What Makes a Community? And I'm going to go in a little more detail with this one because, especially when Miladis and I were talking, and she was talking about diverse learners and certain challenges that populations, certain students, what are it's really eye-opening because a lot of people think like kids don't always see like what's around them, like they're just like this, but they actually are percent like they are watching all, just like parents say I have eyes in the back of my head. Those kids have the ears and eyes, like they are very perceptive of what's going on around them. So this particular lesson is a really great way to have them answer this question, what makes a community? But it also brings up conversations where is what is their perception of a community, of what their community looks like. And sometimes they'll even compare, like, well, my community has this, others communities have that. So let me walk you through the lesson, and you can like, have a, picture this kind of moment of what this looks like in your classroom and how you could adapt this as well. So these are the objectives. So we want them to define a community, identify goods and services provided by government, define taxes, and explain that taxes pay for goods and services provided by the government. So the compelling question is, what makes a community? So you have these little strips of paper that you're going to cut out, and you give one to each student. But to start off the lesson, you do, what community do you live in? Who are some people that work in your community? Who are some people that live in your community? And this may look different depending on what your community looks like. This is not, and while the activity itself, the cards create a specific community, we had a teacher who found that there were certain things in the cards that she goes, I don't know if my kids necessarily go far enough to see these things. They see more of like what's, because I mean, believe it or not, some people don't go, like I've heard, like 5 miles past. Like it takes a while for them to get beyond a certain distance from their community. So they actually modified it so that they would point out things that were there. And some teachers even for even like lower grade levels, or even if you're in some cases um, to modify this a bit, even for middle or high school, they printed out pictures of places in their community as well so that they could place them. In this lesson, the students draw the pictures of what's on the card. But again, some teachers have also provided pictures. They've actually gone out, taken pictures, and printed them of what's in their community. So each student is going to receive a community card that describes a business or place. So this is cards 1 and 2. So Miss Suter and her daughter Bella live in Stonecrest apartment buildings, and they like to go to the City Art Museum. And then here's Mary's movie theater. It's underlined. It's a business, shows movies to people. And then there's the City Recycling Center. There is a reason why one is underlined. There is a reason why one is in bold. First, we start by having students draw what is underlined. All right, they're drawing what's underlined. So, and it has in the lesson planner all the instructions. And then we also have discussion questions about this, because we want to make sure kind of like, where do people live in the community? Where are some businesses and what are they selling? So here's the other thing too, is that you have the students take the drawings and put them and lay out the community. And this is my favorite part because this is where students take it on their own. Let them go with it. And again, this would even work in high school. If you want to start talking about taxes, like if you're starting really introductory on things on taxes, this is a great one. But this is great because you have the students, you're actively seeing them engaged in the content and owning it when they put these pictures together. And there's always one I've always seen, like, even when I do this with teachers, there's the one that kind of takes control, like, you're putting this here, you're putting this here as well, but really let them take it. And then the next time, then now you want them to draw what's in bold, right? The City Art Museum, the City Recycling Center. So then you have them go back and draw this out. And then you finish up, okay? So you tell them that they've created a community. What special features are there? And then who provides these special features? So what's in bold, this is how you introduce it. These are government provided goods and services. And how is that paid for? Through taxes. Okay, so this allows you to start to have that conversation about those government provided goods and services, and even if you're doing an introduction to taxes. So it works really nicely with that. And then you actually also create the sidewalks, and you have them actually like they don't have this in this lesson, but I think it's great because it does actually talk about zoning, right? Do you have the dump next to the school? Like what should go where. So if you let them kind of take on that, and then they create the streets and all of that, it's really fun. I feel like it's an in-classroom version of, I don't know if you guys remember the video game SimCity. I used to love playing that. No, oh, nobody. SimCity, yeah, yeah. You could. I remember when you could start doing a tornado through the city. But yeah, yeah. SimCity was really great. But this is kind of, again, a live version of doing that. But it's going to bring up some really great conversations. It could bring up some sensitive conversation, but it creates like a really safe space to do that because they're all sharing in what they see in the community, especially if you're in particular a school that is assigned to a concentrated area of that community as well. Okay. All right. So this is where again, this you have the students give them crepe paper, so those little streamers. They love that. That's how they make the sidewalks and the streets. Okay, so let's move on to secondary. And I know I have this labeled high school, but whether you teach middle school or high school, these lessons apply to both. So that's our elementary stuff, and that's not it. Again, go on FRE.org, and there is so much for you to take a look at there. And by the way, our elementary content, you can't upload that to Google Classroom, Canvas, or Schoology, which I'm assuming my sister says that the closest thing they have is like a Google Classroom, but it's not necessarily to deliver certain content. All right, so using active learning to introduce key personal finance topics. I'm going to show you the first one. It's called Making Personal Finance Decisions. So this particular curriculum is 20 lessons that covers 10 personal finance concepts, and it's grounded in economic theory, utilizing again various teaching strategies including active learning, and it aims to equip students with knowledge and skills for informed financial decisions. So here are the units and here are the topics that's with this one, and I just want to highlight, I'm going to highlight for you some of my favorites. Really, I mean, again, I'm going to tell you everything is my favorite, but I have two here that I think are ones that, with the time that I have, if I had to choose two, here they are. But we even have one on insurance. And I'm not going to go through too much of that one today, but I had somebody who was like, don't even bother teaching them insurance. They don't know. Well, how are they going to do that? And I'm like, again, as I highlighted earlier, what if you create the experience where they have to buy insurance policies? Then feels like real life. You draw from a deck of cards, and then a situation comes your way. Well, what policy do you have? Do you have enough coverage, not enough coverage, or coverage at all? And I'm telling you, I don't know if there's ever been a more fun way to teach about insurance. But this one goes through short-term disability policies. It teaches them about life insurance, health insurance, car insurance, renters insurance. All of that is right there with this one as well. Okay, so my next picture this in your classroom. This is from the Making Personal Finance Decisions curriculum. And if you go on FRE.org and search for Making Personal Finance Decisions, you'll find that curriculum there. Okay. All right. So the first one is about decision making. I don't know how many of you are, if we were in the room, I would ask you how many of you have ever heard of the PACE decision making model? Okay. Woo, yay. Okay, I see one digital. There you go. The PACE decision making model. And believe it or not, there's more people that don't know about this model than do. And also the standard, the way it's written doesn't really lend itself to understand that there's a process behind it. But this is a process to help in the decision making. So I use this quite often. So this particular lesson, we teach the students about this model. So again, theater of the mind here. So this one's called Making Choices and Identifying Costs. The compelling question is, how can a decision-making process help you make informed decisions? All right. So the PACE model is this. All right. So it stands for problem, alternatives, criteria, evaluate. Wait, PACE, I'm missing, I don't know where the D went. Where did the D go? Well, the D went somewhere. because the D is for decision. So it decided to go somewhere else because it was there earlier. So I don't know what happened. But PACE is you define the problem, you list the alternatives, you consider the criteria that those alternatives must meet. Then you evaluate each of the alternatives and what criteria they meet. And then the D for in PACE is decision. All right, you use that information to make the decision. All right, so this is what a PACE grid looks like. All right, so they list the alternatives and they list the different criteria that it has to meet. So I'm going to show you this example. In this particular one, we have the students read a story, what to do on a Friday night. All right, so that's a very important question that I even still ask myself with the dreams that I will be able to do something other than play all the games my children want to play. But one day I will get to make a PACE decision making model on different things that I can do. All right, but either way, so here, three friends need to decide between staying in and having dinner delivered, going to the movies, or going to their high school football game. So what will they decide? So what I did with this one is applying some literacy skills. I want them to underline the alternatives, circle the criteria. So kind of finding information in the text. So I didn't put it right out there, right? This is the alternative, this is the criteria. I want them working as a group to find what they are as well. Okay, and then we have them fill out this right here. All right, so stay at home, movies and eat there, school football game, and then what's the criteria that they find in the story? Well, there's a curfew, there's a cost, all right, and they want to make sure everyone enjoys it. So in the story, we have them evaluate. If that alternative meets the criteria, they put a plus sign. If it doesn't, they put a minus. So you can see here that staying at home and having food delivered doesn't meet everything. It just gets 1 point. Going to the movies, it's too far. They won't be home on time. Not everyone wants to go to the movies, and it's also very expensive. All right, so that gets 0 points. But what about the football game? They'll be home on time. It'll cost less than $20, and everybody's excited about doing that. So guess what? Which one wins? Going to the football game. This also gives you an opportunity to introduce opportunity cost, right? The next highest valued alternative that we give up when we make a decision. And in this case, what was the next best alternative? It was the staying at home and having food delivered. So that's their opportunity cost. All right, next curriculum I have for you is active learning lessons from It's Your Paycheck. So again, if you go to FRE.org and you click on Explore Resources and you type in It's Your Paycheck, you'll get the whole curriculum, and hopefully I'll have some time to explore the website with you today. So It's Your Paycheck comes in two formats, all right? It comes with those online modules that I told you about earlier, and then it also comes with an in-person curriculum, okay? And making personal finance decisions is classroom only, in-person classroom only. That does not have modules for the making personal finance decisions. It's Your Paycheck, though, comes with an in-person curriculum and then online modules. Both can be done independently. It's not that you need the modules to do the in-person stuff. It's just that the online modules is a version of the in-person lesson plan and content. And this one is designed for middle school and high school. All right, so this one is a lesson, and it employs various teaching strategies so that students have opportunities to apply what they're being taught. And it includes a PDF. And just as I showed the screenshots earlier of the other curriculum, that gives you all the step-by-step process. So here's the lessons, investing in yourself. I'll go in more detail about that one. Oh, W4 and W2s. Guess what? When I got my first high school job at Bath and Body Works, I smelled good every day I left work. My dad always called it Bed Bath and Beyond. I could never get him to understand that it was different, but my dad swore that I sold sheets, not perfume. And so I told him, no, it's Bath and Body Works, Dad. He would just drop me off at the door of the mall. He never actually, I don't recall if my dad ever went to a mall. But anyways, but I remember when I started that job, it was my first job, and I got a W4. I had no idea that's what it was. And she goes, and the person that was hiring me said, that's for taxes. And I said, okay, I heard that's important, but I don't know what to do with this form. It looks important because guess what? It's asking for my social security number. My mom told me to never give that out. So I was like, what is this? And so she had me just sign it, and she says, I'll fill in the rest. Well, now later on in life, I realized that that was illegal because what she should have done is had me take it home and for me to discuss it with my parents to fill that out. But I can't tell you how many times when students are like, yeah, I filled out some form about taxes. And it's not like anybody's making that easy to read. It really tests your endurance and stamina because you read through it and you're like, okay, wait, so 4.5 section 2.com is what? So, and so what is this? So this really breaks that down for them, what that W-4 form is. Not only do we have a printable, we also have a video that explain it, and we have updated it since the W-4 form was updated a few years ago. So that's one. Cash the check and track the dough is about exactly as is really tracking where the money's going. Your budget plan is that one. Oh, it's a great. I think I'm going to go over that one. But that's a board game, a really fun board game that where students learn about successful and unsuccessful spending habits. And then we also have. I'm going to jump down to here, lesson 7, reading a contract, reading a credit contract. A lot of people get into contracts, and that's the one thing where I think they strategically, at times, make it overwhelming, and people don't read it because they just want to get the transaction over with, but you don't really understand what you're getting into. And I think because that is what most people do, sometimes it takes advantage of certain individuals and then not really understanding what they've gotten into. So we have a lesson plan that makes students aware of, listen, this one's specifically for credit, but it does a really good job of saying when you're going to sign something, when they say read the fine print, you know what? You should read the fine print. So this breaks it down for them why that is important, that they do that. And also, this one does specifically touch on what you're getting yourself into because you are responsible for paying back a debt. So then that also lends itself well to talking about alternative credit. So payday lending is lesson 8, and then rent to own or not to rent to own is lesson 9. So I know that in more communities, certain communities, you're going to see more of those type of alternative lending services, and this is really great to kind of have them see the cost. And it's not really to bring like shame if some people have to turn to those services, but for them to understand what the true cost is if that is your only way of getting by, is having to take on those type of financial products as well. All right, so how to avoid that alternative lending? Well, invest in yourself. So this lesson, there's a picture of this in your classroom. This is lesson 1 from It's Your Paycheck. I love this lesson. It's a great one to do, first of all, because it gets a point across really well, and you as a teacher have a fun time observing this. So in this lesson, we introduce students to human capital, the knowledge and skills that they learn. So a lot of people think when they hear human capital, because there's also physical capital in economics, they think it's the workers' labor, but it's the knowledge and skills. And a lot of them don't even know what human capital is. But here's how you set this one up. Everybody in the class is going to make name tents, and there's very specific instructions, and you model this for them. You give them a sheet of paper. You tell them 20 times to not fold the sheet of paper. Okay, maybe even 50 times, because there's always one. There's always, the Timmy, the Mary, whoever, who's going to fold a freaking sheet of paper. So make sure you have extras. All right. So, and I stopped using the expensive construction paper because I found myself just like wasting it because somebody was freaking folding it, and then I couldn't use that sheet again. All right. So have them again, not fold it, follow your model this for them. You say, I'm just modeling it for you, fold it like this. I'm modeling it for you. And then you just look around the room, make sure no one's folding a paper. And then the 3 that do, you hand the paper, and then you start again. Okay, we're not folding. All right. Okay, so model this for them, and then you tell them the instructions, all right, on how to do this. And then you're going to separate the class into 4 groups. The first group is going to produce those name tents following those exact instructions, but they can only use their non-dominant hand. So I'm right-handed, so that means I could only use it. I can sit down at my desk, use my left hand, and my right hand is behind my back. All right. Group 2, sitting down at their desks, they can produce their name tent, but they can use only their dominant hand. Okay, so in this case for me, it would be my right. Group 3, they get to remain seated and use both hands. Okay, no problems. And here's the fun group. Group 4, each of them is going to produce a name tent while standing, using only one hand, their non-dominant hand, and they have to keep their dominant hand behind their back, and they can't use a desk, table, floor, walls, or chair. They can also not assist one another. And this one, you also have to tell them that they can use each other's backs. All right, because I learned that they're like, well, you didn't say I can't use somebody's back. I'm like, no, you can't. Okay, you can't do that. All right, so, but all of this is to get a certain point across. All right, they have 2 minutes to produce the name tents, and in those 2 minutes, you want the students to record how long it took them to complete the name tent, because then you're going to record the information on this table. All right. Now, based on the certain restrictions that they had, you're going to notice a pattern here. Which group do you think finished it in 2 minutes or less and finished the most name tents, right? Most likely group 3. All right. Who do you think is probably not going to finish all of them, or it took them the longest and they probably don't look very good? Group 4. All right. The other, group 1, group 2, they actually do okay. They still take a little longer than group 3. Okay. But all of this is to teach them about human capital, the knowledge and skills that people obtain through education, experience, and training, and why investing in their human capital is important. So in these different groups, so for example, group 3 represents your highest educated, and this does refer a lot to college, but I started changing it a little bit when I was teaching so that it would say highly skilled, highly trained, or those who have sought higher college education, because I wanted them to see that in vocational. I didn't want to remove that and say that the only group that group 3 represents is your PhDs or your masters. I wanted to also transition that when it comes to college, it's your it's the highest, that college and above, but also those that are more vocational, that are the most skilled, most trained, who have taken on the most apprenticeships, gotten at, whatever it is, to be like the best electrician, the best that you can be at whatever you're going to do. The way to be the best is to have experience and to have an education. And that's what I would tell them. I don't care what you're going to do. Okay? Get trained, increase your human capital, invest in that. All right? And that's what that investment is. Whatever it looks like, it's education wherever you go. Okay? And group 4 represents the high school dropouts. They have more challenges. All right? When it comes. And I even ask the students, oh, and then that 1 and 2 is some college education as well, and then high school graduates. So, but all of that brings a really good conversation, because I even asked the students, if you were a name tent factory, which would you be most likely to hire? Right? And a lot of them say 3. And I said, yeah, because they'll produce more, they'll produce it faster, but most of all, they'll produce it well. Right? So this is a really great one to kind of open up that discussion right there. All right, the next is picture this in your classroom from this curriculum. It's your budget plan. And so this one right here is to teach them about budget expenses, fixed expenses, income, periodic, and variable expenses. I love this lesson when you're starting to talk about budgeting, because students have to identify successful and unsuccessful spending behavior. So for you as a teacher, it's really great to see what it is that they're categorizing as successful and unsuccessful. But what's more fun than playing a board game? So this one, you print out these board games, and these are the little game pieces right here. And then the 2 players are Jetstream and Whoosh. Right? And there's a reason for those names. It's not like somebody just came. It actually took me a while presenting this lesson that I was like, oh, because the author's no longer at the bank. So I was like, okay, I get this, right? That, or I've made up a really logical thing in my head, but it was confirmed for me by Mary. I was like, is this what this means? Okay, so they start, the little game pieces are these little cards right here, the star and the little wing sign thing. Okay, I think that's what it is. All right, so they put the little game pieces at the start of the board, and then they draw cards. So Whoosh's cards are in this pile, upside down, mixed up. Jetstream's cards are right here. Okay. So with whoever's, I don't know if it's like tallest or oldest. I think it was tallest, because I never got that. If it was whoever's tallest go first, I was like, dude, I'm like at the end of the line. I'm last. But anyways, so in this case, the students take turns drawing cards, and then some of these things. So you establish a savings account. Let's take a look at Jetstream. Put 10% of your paycheck into that account. Oh my gosh, before spending on other things, move forward 3 spaces. And then let's say Whoosh's turn. All right, let's see what Whoosh does. Whoosh, you didn't double check your math when you created a budget and do not have an accurate amount for your monthly expenses. You move back 2 spaces. Okay, so you might start having your students, as they're playing their game, they're like, Miss, I think this is rigged, right? Or Mister, I think this is rigged, right? And so in the back of your mind, you're like, yes, it is. It is rigged. All right, so why is it rigged? That's because Jetstream, going through the Jetstream, guess what? They're making good decisions, successful spending habits. All right. Whoosh, guess what? Their money goes whoosh. Okay. Like my little big brother, my younger brother. All right. The money just goes whoosh. I should play with this game with him during Thanksgiving. All right. So his money goes away. All right. So in this case, and you'll then what you want them to do is take the little cards, and this right here tells them to write these down, but for me, I would actually have them take the little game cards, and now you have two columns here. I want you to take the cards and the successful spending habits, put them under this column, and the unsuccessful ones. And they're going to notice that a lot of those cards come from the Whoosh game cards, and that's why Whoosh didn't win, okay? Because their decisions didn't move them forward towards their financial goals, okay? All right, so that is that. So now I'm going to move forward to showing you a little bit of the website with the few minutes I have. We want to leave for questions. Melaris, am I okay? Okay, perfecto. All right, let's do this. So, also, Melaris, from Dominican Republic. I was born in Bogota, Colombia. Parents moved us very young to Palm Beach County, Florida. I was 4.5 years old. And that is also where I met my husband. And he's also Colombian. Ha! We were neighbors. So there we go. Okay. All right. So here we are at FRE.org. Manatis, you can see it. Can you see the? Okay, perfect. Okay. All right. So federalreserveeducation.org, again, FRE.org, your new favorite website. And by the way, with anything else that you're teaching, okay, again, find something that you can fit in, right, into the subjects that you're already teaching, elementary, middle, or high school. All right. So up here on the right hand corners where you would have that create account, I don't have it because since it's Google, it saves that in the magical world of I don't know what, but it saves it. So it disables that create an account link for me. So if you click, I would just click login, but this is where that link usually sits. All right. So here we have explore resources, professional development, and our glossary. Oh, by the way, if you click here on teaching resources and you want to learn more about the resources you can add to Google Classroom, Schoology, or Canvas, right here, add resources to an LMS. This takes you to a link that provides you a PDF because guess what? We have instructional videos and PDFs that guide you step by step on how to do that. Okay. All right. So we're going to click on explore resources right here. And here you can do a keyword search, and then you can also filter by subject, topic, resource type, grade level, and duration. One thing I do want to note on the resource type is that here, remember how I told you earlier that people are getting mixed up about what is for an LMS and what is for in classroom? Well, we separated it. So LMS compatible is right here. And then things that are that in-person curriculum, those you would find by clicking here. One thing real quickly, LMS compatible, the video Q&As, you can show those in your classroom because it draws them from YouTube. Okay, so you don't have to upload it. If you want to show one of our videos to your class and whole group, you can. All right, because again, it draws it from YouTube as well. Our reading Q&As, there are versions that are downloadable as a PDF with a teacher assessment. I have to double check because I think we did do that, and now we're going to get back into the practice of doing that. So we'll let you know when that's there. You can also sign up for our newsletters as well. If you click here, subscribe, and then you'll know when we either make changes or when new resources are available. Okay, so I want to show you something I didn't get to show you. I didn't show you in the PowerPoint, and that's our infographics and comics. So I'm going to click here, and I'm going to click apply. Okay. Oh, look, en español, la historia. Did I click language? Did I click Spanish? Oh, no. That's interesting that all the Spanish ones came up first. I mean, it makes my heart happy. That's the first time it's ever happened. Okay. All right. Well, there's a lot of Spanish, which is great. I'm just trying to find the link that okay. Let me see. I'm actually going to clear out and just type in infographics. Well, yes, now you know we provide some things in Spanish as well. A lot of our economics videos for middle school and high school, I have done those translations and you'll hear my voice. So as well. All right, so it's not like, oh, I've heard her voice before. No, not like my husband who's like, oh, there's her voice. But if you hear it in a video, that's me. Okay, all right, so here we have infographics, so we have economics posters, and we also have personal finance posters. And these posters, you can order them, and they're free 99, and you can order as many sets as your heart desires as well. You can order them individually, or you can order an entire set of all of them. And if I were you, I would just order the whole set. Just click them all, okay? Just like Elf clicks the buttons on the elevator, click all the infographics so that you get them and you get to hang them up on your wall as well. So for example, here, let's talk about for like what is an entrepreneur. If you want to talk about entrepreneurship, here is an infographic, and they're long, beautiful posters. You can click on this one and you can get a sample, a PDF of what that looks like right there. They're really nice. And guess what? There's a little lesson plan that's attached to all of these that uses the information from the infographic. And there's a little lesson plan that has been written. This is from our colleagues, our system colleagues from the Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta. So yeah, you can click the order now and there they are. Okay. All right. Well, wow, I've talked a lot. So I want to make sure that we leave some space for any questions or anything that you have. And Melades, if there's anything else that you want to close with, but I've given you so much today. So, but thank you for the opportunity, and I hope that you explore the site. And feel free to reach out. Anything that you need whatsoever, it is my job. This is my job, is not only to do the webinars, but to support you in any way I can, or that we can as a team, as a system, so that you get to get these resources to you as well. So thank you so much.
No, thank you, Andrea. That was a lot of information, but it was so very, very helpful. I love free 99. It is my new favorite thing. I am going to share it all the time.
Free 99
Um,
works
and
like
I
that.
absolutely love that. And that's what we're about. We want to take the lift off of teachers and districts in terms of providing as much training and as many resources for at no cost as possible. We know that materials from the Federal Reserve are very high quality. So thank you so much. I also really appreciate the fact that you were sharing resources for all of K-12 because that's what we do. We represent all of K-12. We want to support our elementary educators, our middle school educators, and of course our high school educators. So I really appreciate that. And if you could stop sharing your screen, Andrea, and I will be able, can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Fantastic. Okay, so I am showing our website. Andrea showed us or her website, or the Federal Reserve's website, excuse me, FRE.org. Now you have a visual of our website, FEPP.org. And in our website, we have created a list of curated list of resources for K-12. Many of them are available in Spanish. Some of them are specifically for our special population students. So please, I encourage you, visit the FRE.org website. They have so much there, but also when you have a moment, visit the FEPP.org website because we have so many resources that we work so hard to get to you. Additionally, we also have our FEPP YouTube channel that you can access through our website. This webinar is being recorded and will probably be available. Is it safe to say in about 2 weeks, Linda, more or less? About 2 weeks. But previous webinars that we've had and led are already on our website. So if you want to see what we've done in the past, you can explore that because we have a lot there. Okay. And as I said before, this is a team effort. It takes a village to do this work, to expand financial education, to do it well, to do it equitably, taking into account the challenges not only that our educators face to bring this instruction into the classroom, but also that our students face. And we lean on our partners. We lean on financial institutions such as the Federal Reserve banks, government agencies, you, our educators, nonprofit organizations, K-12 programs here in OSPI, legislators to do the work. They're part of our village. I hope you see us as part of your village when you're thinking about where you can go, where you can turn for reliable, high quality resources and high quality professional development. And speaking of professional development, this is the second part of our webinar series, but next December 1st, from 4 to 5:30, we will have the final webinar in this three-part webinar series. It is titled Financial Inclusion in Action. We're going to be unlocking credit union resources for educators, and we're going to be partnering with the financial education specialists from BECU, as well as the financial engagement manager manager for Numerica Credit Union. We're so excited to partner with them. They're kind of covering the entire state. We have representatives from credit unions in the western part of the state with BCU, even though they've kind of branched out and are now in so many other areas. And Numerica Credit Union has a very high presence, excuse me, in the eastern part of the state. So we're really, really excited. We hope you can join us for that webinar. And I want to just kind of pause. Thank you so much for your time and attention today. Ask if you guys have any questions at this time. Thank you, Lee. I appreciate the opportunity to bring this content to you. Thank you so much, Peyton. And if at any point that you want to get in touch, my information is here. Andrea, do you mind sharing your email with participants in the chat? Thank you so much. Thank you, Brett, Connie, Kel. Thank you so much for your kind words. Thank you, Andrea. I really appreciate that. And we're gonna stay online if you guys have any questions up to 5:30. And if not, we can give you back 4 minutes of your afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us.